all the CAs, and Krista for signing me up for this talk today. So I'm going to talk about my high school track season and the successes and failures that come along with it. I was late, really late. Chances of the meet was running early. Chances of a track meet running ahead of schedule are similar to the chances of winning the lottery. And this was a come-as-you'd-like meet for the team. This wasn't normal, but the meet was so close to home. If you had a race early in the day, you could come and then leave when you wanted. I ran the 4x800 meter relay earlier in the morning. All four of us run around the track twice. After that race, my team had set a school record and finished 5th in the nation for the fastest high school track relay team. Everyone had injuries or was sick too, so we would beat our time by some 10 seconds in the next meet or two. We could be number 1. I had gone home after that race content, knowing I would be recruited by some top-tier track school on a full-ride scholarship. I just had to keep progressing from where I was at. To give you some perspective, a 2-minute half-mile time is equivalent to 15 miles per hour. I was hoping to run a 1:54 or less by the end of the season. Then I could go anywhere. The possibilities were endless. My next race, the 200-meter dash, was 4 long hours after my 4x8. The top 18 fastest times for each race throughout the track season qualify for the state championship meet. At this meet, the team for the 4x8 earlier had qualified for the state meet. So I could qualify for state in the 200-meter dash today as well, increasing the team's odds for winning the state meet. I would be the up-and-comer to recruit. But after the relay earlier in the day, I was exhausted, so I had gone home and sat on my couch to watch some shows on demand. I figured that I would leave at around 12:15 to be 2 hours early for my 2:30 race. My coach told us to be at the track 2 hours before our next race. At 12:15, I had just finished watching an episode of Archer, a funny cartoon. I was ready to get up, but an idea crossed my mind. The meet definitely was going to be running late. There was no point for me to be at the track 2 hours before a race that will probably be delayed an hour anyway. My last meet had a 2-hour delay. I could be an hour and 15 minutes early for my scheduled race time and still be fine. Outside, the temperature was a chilly and damp 50 degrees, with thick fog everywhere. There was no point of me getting cold for longer than I needed to. Plus, the next show was in the queue, and my couch was so comfy. I'll probably race better than anticipated from the added rest. For the 200-meter dash, I would need to be loose, warmed up, ready. People pulled muscles and hurt themselves in that race if they didn't stretch. So it was important that I got there early. I lived 15-ish minutes away from the meet. As you may have guessed, I did not leave at 12:15. Due to my rationale, I left at 12:50. I assumed the meet was running late. I called my friend Adam, who was at the meet. Hey Adam, how late is the meet running? Dude, it's running an hour early. They're really on top of things today. I couldn't believe it. What? I'm running the 200. Yeah man, you better get over here. They're starting that race in 20 minutes. I was late. Really late. This was my chance to prove myself as a sprinter, and my opportunity was running away. Coach had never trusted me, and constantly called me the wild card for the team. I made it to the meet 5 minutes before the girls started their heats of the 200. Girls generally run before the guys. Coach gave me a look of disappointment as I entered. I was determined. I had to run this race. I ignored it. I started warming up, jumping around frantically, doing anything that I could to get warmed up for this race. I did a bunch of startups. You know, where you pump your legs as fast as you can and then you're at full speed and then you slow down again. I was so nervous. I could pull my hamstring during this race. That kills season. I had practiced every day since November through 0-degree wind chill across ice and snow, getting yelled at to run faster on the verge of fainting, being unable to look at fast food the same way ever again, with my muscles throbbing for weeks. I was on track for greatness. I couldn't mess up my season like that. After all my preparation. Waiting for my heat, I did another startup, and then another, and then a pang beyond my right knee. Something seemed to unhook. No matter. It's probably nothing. Runners pull hamstrings during the race, not during warm-ups. I'm still running the race. I had to run. I'll show coach that I'm a sprinter. I lined up in the starting blocks. With a gunshot, the 200-meter dash started. I pushed into the ground and went nowhere fast. My legs had no power behind them. The other runners were in front of me rather than at my side. I finished 2 seconds behind everyone else. I think I pulled my hamstring. That race signified the start of every day in the training room. Heating my hamstring, icing my hamstring, heating it again, icing it again. I would undergo the most brutal massages that afterwards the trainers were sweating from digging their elbows into my legs so hard. I recovered quickly. Within 2 weeks of my injury, I was cleared to run again. All of my coaches were so relieved, and I was excited to get back running with the group, impatient and irritated for missing all of that training. I felt foolish and embarrassed for letting the past 2 weeks go to waste. That day of practice, the team was running 400-meter intervals. I wanted to make up for lost time and prove that I could keep up with my running partner Nolan and beat my friend Jake. Jake was recruited to run cross-country and track at the Naval Academy, and Nolan was the #1 recruit for the NCAA track champion, Texas A&M, for the 400 and 800-meter runs. I was going to keep up with Nolan and Jake. My hamstring was 100%. Coach wanted me to run with the second arm. I didn't listen. I'm not anyone's wild card. Coach started the group with a go, and I wasted no time getting back into the front of the pack, re-exerting my dominance to everyone on the track team. I defiantly ran in front with Jake and Nolan. I belonged here. After running my interval, my hamstring felt fine, and I finished within a second of Nolan's finish. Ha! My ego was huge at that point. I was flirting with destiny. It was glorious. Then, my coach yelled at me. Suddenly, my head deflated and the adrenaline wore off. I felt my right leg tense up, and a searing pain went down the back of my quad as if I had just been electrocuted. I tried to play it off, but with each step, I found it harder to walk. Actually, I couldn't walk. My coach gave me his disappointed look again. In denial, I ended that practice early. The wild card was yet again back in the training room. My hopes for getting another shot at qualifying for the state track meet for the half-mile run were running away, let alone my chances of ever running again. Weeks and weeks and weeks of physical therapy. The first time seemed like forever, but now I lived in the training room. I had 4 meets left to qualify for the state championship when I had injured myself the second time. Now the clock on recovery was ticking. My original #1 time in the state, with a 2:01:14, no longer qualified for the state meet. 4 meets left, 3 meets. Every trainer at my high school had made me yelp or cry from pain. I logged more hours on the mechanical bike than Lance Armstrong. My feet almost got frostbite from how often I was in the ice tub. I had to race again. I had to prove myself. After 4 weeks in the training room, I was back on the track before the second to last meet of the season. My coach put me in the 800-meter run with my leg being at 80% health in mind. I had learned to be a little more cautious. My strategy would be to build up speed throughout the race so I wouldn't pull the hammy again. I ran a 1:59:97. With that time, I was now number 18. I had qualified for state, but that wasn't going to cut it. There was still 1 more meet left for everyone's season, and everyone's best always comes at the end of the season, so my time wasn't going to make the cut. So my chances of contributing for the state championship title all came down to how well I raced the last race of the season. I didn't even blink, and it was upon me. My leg wasn't 100%, but this was the make or break point. I had sat through 10 different pep talks from my dad and 5 grimacing leg massages within the 48 hours before my race. At that point, there was no time to be nervous. There was no more excuses. There was no time for second guessing. There was nothing else but the track. It was too late for butterflies. This was my one opportunity. Nolan was in my heat, and to qualify, I had to keep up with Nolan. The gunshot. From the start, we were in the lead. I was right behind him after the first lap, and then he bolted. I had nothing else left to give, but I had to give more. It was the longest minute of my life. Nolan ran the second fastest time in Colorado, and I was only 6 seconds behind him. I ran a 2-second personal record and ran the 13th fastest time in the 800-meter run at 1:58.11. After I crossed the line, I did not talk to anyone. I was purple in the face, straddling the toilet with the worst headache of my life, puking my guts out. But I was happy. I had finally qualified for the state at number 13, my new lucky number, behind Nolan at second and Jake at third. Next thing I knew, I was lining up on the track for the Open 800 at the state championship. The 20,000 attendants in the stadium were roaring. I needed to place in the top 10 to win the state championship for the team. After puking my guts out after my last 800, and I had only come 13th in state, I would have to give even more this race. I wasn't sure I had much more to give. So much was on the line. I truly was the wild card. My skin color was a pasty white, as if I had never seen sunlight. I couldn't hear anything except my own breathing. To add to the setting, it was about to rain. I felt like puking. It would be so easy to prove everyone right. Take it easy during the race, blame my hamstring or my lack of training during the season for a poor performance, and have everyone say after I didn't place, "Chuck, you did the best you could." At that point, I was so nervous. The starter noticed me. She said in a motherly tone, "You okay, son?" I nodded. "Everything's going to be all right." Then she shot the gun. My tactic was to follow Jake because Nolan was going to be going out too fast for anyone to keep up. The strategy was to start slow and finish fast. Ironically, after the first lap, I was in last place, and Jake was in 17th. Now it was pouring. I felt like I was running late again, leaving my house late, warming up late, screwing up everything, like I was a failure. I hated that feeling. We kicked it. I pumped my arms and legs harder and faster than ever before and ran around the other runners in the outer lane. I was in a state of frenzy. I followed Jake the best I could, but with 100 meters left to go, I didn't have any power behind my steps. I couldn't do it. My speed was dying and my legs went numb. Jake was running ahead and gained more ground on me with each step. I watched as one runner passed me, kicking it into a sprint, and then another sprinted, and then everyone. Doubt filled my mind as I only felt pain. I was unable to breathe. I couldn't see with the rain getting into my eyes. But an idea crossed my mind. None of that mattered. I belonged to it. I finished out my stride and crossed the finish line. Nolan finished in second at a 1:52.66. Jake finished in third at a 1:56 flat, both as expected. And I finished sixth with a time of 1:57.17. We won the Colorado 4A State Track and Field Championship as a team. And I learned the price of laziness, impatience, and pride. Do not let your wants of the moment get in the way of your dreams for the future. Thank you.